Hi, I'm Dean Sage.
And I'm Jack Hervin.
And this is Show Me Your Deck,
a podcast where we explore the intersections of oracles and chakras,
using our original decks to create new insights. So for us, this is this is episode 26 for everyone. Not just for us. Like we don't have like special episode numbers that were the secret episode files.
Like you have to pay even more for that one.
The Vatican archives.
Oh, ooh.
Yes. But for us, this is just past the holidays, so we're kind of coming out of it. Have you done your transitional decorating? Because you have, for each season you have your different. So have you done that transition yet?
Yes, I still need to hang the lavender curtains in the bedroom and in the main room, but otherwise all the art and bric-a-brac is placed about accordingly. Yes. That's
something that my spouse is running into. So like we have Halloween and Christmas nailed down. Halloween starts usually in August and lasts until...
Because why not?
Because why not? It lasts until... obviously until Halloween's over, and then Christmas comes out right away. Okay. We don't really have a Thanksgiving period. We just have Christmas. But then once Christmas goes away, now we don't really have anything else to put up. And so we're kind of in this like no man's land where we need some stuff. And we're not really like seasonal decorators either. So that's kind of like we're like stuck as like, what do we do?
Valentine's Day. Make everything red and chocolate.
We'll see. We might become seasonal decorators just because they miss the decorations so much once they're gone. And it is pretty.
Yeah. That's fun.
We have the lights on the banister and the tree, so we don't really turn on the living room lights. We just enjoy the light of the Yule tree. And
oh, how pretty. Do you use white lights or
white
colored
lights,
strings?
White lights. And
so it gets a nice warm glow.
The last 2 years has been a candy cane inspired tree. Nice. So reds, whites, silvers, stripes.
I know that you've got multiple fur babies, and I guess you somehow navigate all that. I have one kitten, and there's no way I would put anything like a tree up.
Yours is too young, and then we may have to skip the tree next year. So we have 2 fur babies that are about to turn 5. And for the first 2 years, there was no tree. We tried it the first year. They ruined it. Mm-hmm. We tried it again when they were 3, and they still got in it and bent some of the lower branches, and we had to rebend those branches back. And so this tree doesn't have a lot of life left in it. Like it's probably a couple years away from retirement to the farm, but we have the sort of calmed down. The fur children, the 5-year-olds are sort of calmed down now, and they go near the tree and they kind of look at us, and then they try to like bite it, and they get squirted, and then they run away. They go hide behind it to get our attention, but generally they're leaving it alone. Just generally they're leaving it alone.
I have 18-month-old kitten magic, and there's just no way.
So we have 2 4-month-olds now. Mm-hmm. And they are in the nursery because we haven't fully integrated yet. So they're still in the nursery, and they will not see the tree this year. There will not be impetus.
Well, not only are they young, but one of them is an orange tabby. It's like, oh no. no.
So far the tuxedo is the more rambunctious one.
Really?
Yes.
Well, okay, that's cool. I have an atypical ragdoll, and so maybe you have an atypical orange tabby.
We'll see. We have a ragdoll-esque. She's probably mixed because she came through a shelter. So unless for some reason a breeder or an owner was like, no, this is cross-eyed, get it away from me. But apparently the ragdoll, like I saw some videos, the ragdoll genetics hold. Like there was this one cat that looks like a ragdoll, but they were only like 38% ragdoll. There were some other things mixed in there, but like they look ragdoll. They don't look like anything else. They don't look like a mix. Sometimes you get like tufts of hair mixed with short hair.
Right. No, mine's 100% ragdoll. Got him from a breeder that I've known since high school. And he's 100% ragdoll, but not particularly, well, no. I was going to say he's not particularly cuddly, but that's not true. The other day I got stuck on the couch for an hour.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like to cuddle much, so when he likes to, everything else has to stop.
That's ours too, yeah.
And so he was nuzzled up and like trying to shove his face under my jaw and like to get his eyeballs deep into the back of my neck. And I was like, he was so cuddly. I was like, no, I'm going to luxuriate in this. It's like, so for a whole hour, he just sat there massaging my face and nuzzling on my jaw. He's like nibbling on my ears. I was like, okay, yeah, this is cool. This is
ours is when she does it, she does it. When it's lap time, it's lap time. Mm-hmm. But not like that's not common. I used to get it on Sundays. Sundays used to be the day where I would go out and turn on the fireplace and sit on the couch, and she would come and get on my chest, and then the other one would get jealous and come sit on my lap, and so I'd have both cats for like an hour or so. But it was always on Sundays. It was only on Sundays. Now, I think with the new children getting here, she's a little bit more seeking attention. So we've had a little bit more lap time than normal, but it's a rare occasion. The other one likes shoulder time, because when she was a baby, I used to put her up on my shoulder in the crook of my neck. And since she's gotten old, she still goes to the same spot. She just happens to take up my entire chest now. Right. So she does shoulder time. She gets up there, she purrs. But that doesn't really last like a ton of time. Sometimes she'll croissant and kind of.
Did you say croissant? Yeah. Sometimes she'll croissant. Okay, I like that. Kitty croissant. I see it. Okay,
she'll kind of come down my chest a little bit, and I'll have to support her with my arms because she's got her butt and her head all in a flat line on my arm, and then I've just got this little arch of a kitten.
I like that kitten croissant.
She'll sometimes stay in that position for a while because she feels really safe and likes to nap there. But yeah, no, I mean they're not extreme lovers. The new one, which we aptly named Sugar, does seem to be a little bit of a lap cat. So we'll see how that progresses. Spicy is true to the name, not much of a lap cat. Doesn't like Sugar will pick up and hold, and she'll just stay. She'll just stay there. But Spice, you will pick up, and she's like, "No, I want to go back down. I want to."
Yeah, my ragdoll
has just lay at your feet, kind of a thing.
My ragdoll has flame points, and the introduction of that orange color definitely puts Spice back in. He is so ornery. I was like, you look like a rag doll, but you don't live like a rag doll. I mean, I'll be sitting there, mind my own business, and he will his ears will go back demonically, and he'll his pupils will go into slits, and he looks like he's going to bite me. And then suddenly he jumps on me and he runs away. It's like, whoa, welcome.
That's funny. Well, that's our kitten magic. So if you ever hear in the background the kittens, now you kind of know. I'll have 4. So at some point during the recordings, there'll be kitten magic. I did have kitten magic while you and I were catching up, but she has left.
Well, you have 4 kittens and 1 deck. I have 4 decks and 1 kitten.
There we go. Look at that.
We're still working with 5 sources of magic.
5 sources of magic. I like it. Well, let's work with 1 source of magic. Let's get our context.
Let's roll this tetrahedron. First reading of the 2025. Here we go. Deck number 2. These are the professions, the affirmations, and we're going to use card number 33. So relatively high up. That is, come here. This is throat chakra, aqua, I say, and how is influenced by the sacral chakra, the viscera, orange, metal, I feel. And that is, I profess that I say what I feel, knowing that sharing it will help me to mature. I profess that I say what I feel, knowing that sharing it will help me to mature.
I like the maturation point here. It feels fitting, as you mentioned, this is our first reading of 2025, so there does seem to be sort of a resolution-esque sense to this. Obviously, I think all of our actions should, in some point, be towards maturity. I think, we should be looking to grow as a person in the actions that we take, in the intentions that we set, in the growth points that we offer ourselves. So that's the nice thing. And what is it again? What I say.
I profess that I say what I feel, knowing that sharing it will help me to mature.
I say what I feel. That's hard. That's hard.
There's a lot of vulnerability in there.
Say what you feel.
Lots of vulnerability, but making yourself vulnerable is what allows you to improve your relationships, and the deeper and more honest interactions you have with people are what help you to grow as a person.
I've been listening and watching a lot of author things right now because I'm kind of able to write right now, and when I'm able to do that, I have to capture it, because otherwise I go through spells of time where I can't write at all. And so I've been trying to kind of get a steady drip of not trivial things, but stuff that kind of excites my writing brain. And one of the things that I was watching one on dialogue, and it's natural humans don't say what they mean. They say other stuff. They talk around it. They talk above it and below it, but they don't go for the true meaning. They never really truly express, this is how I feel, which is why it's so different when someone does do that. When someone does, and this is why therapy can be so important for couples in particular, because you need to say what you feel so the other one can hear that and understand that.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that within the context of therapy. That makes perfect sense.
It's you have to say how you feel to yourself too. I mean, even in individual therapy, that's what makes therapy work. We did studies. We took all sorts of methodologies and theories and all these different psychologists and psychiatrists, and had them do this massive work across multiple patients, and they tallied all the numbers and got the results. And the number one thing that made therapy work was that someone was listening. All the theories be damned, all the techniques and tools and everything else that's been created. And it's just the fact that someone's listening. But conversely, you're talking. I think that's, they were looking at what makes a therapist effective, and it was listening. But what makes therapy effective is that you're saying what you feel.
So with talk therapy, that's the traditional image of therapy, where you are sharing what's on your mind, and the therapist asks questions or shares observations. And that has to be stipulated because there's other kinds of therapy. What does that mean? So there's therapy where you go somewhere, you draw a picture, and that's what you do instead of talking? There's
art therapy. That's usually used for children, because children obviously have a very hard time forming words if they don't have vocabulary for it. There's therapies that are more based around tools and techniques. There's one actually that's very good for PTSD and trauma that has to do with visualizing something that was traumatic, and then you have some sort of physical impetus. Like one of them is watching a Pong, like the original Pong, where that pixel would bounce across the screen. And in this one, it's a rhythm, and you track it with your eyes. And as you track it with your eyes, and you get a physical sensation, a physical stimulation, you will also be envisioning the traumatic experience. And then some of the times you're re-narrating it. And then by kind of linking it to this somatic exercise, one of them you hold paddles, and the paddles kind of vibrate back and forth.
The bilateral electrical stimulation. I've had that. That one's really very good for me personally. I love that one.
So there's different kinds. Traditional talk therapy is more of the Freudian tell me your dreams. But there's like CBT therapy, which the therapist will kind of interrupt you and say, "Oh, that's your negative voice. You need to talk back to that voice. You need to use tools, and so that they'll kind of demonstrate for you what you should be doing on your own time when these kind of things come up." So there's ways of working with a client during talk therapy that involves different theories and tools. And like a metaphor therapist will say, that's really interesting. They'll pick up on words that you're using and help you kind of draw yourself down to more of a metaphoric image that you're talking around or using without realizing it, and then helping you see it. And then by realizing it, you can then start to edit that metaphor. And I've talked about my metaphor here before. That's the therapy that I like the best, because that's just how my brain works. So there's different modalities that they can do, but across all of them, it's someone was listening to me talk is what makes a difference.
In this system, when I use the phrase "I say that" from the throat chakra, air, I say, what's probably a broader way to interpret that is I express. So I say via my words, or I say via my writing, or my sculpture, or my cooking, or my dancing. It's I express. So I like that this is starting with this concept of verbal modalities of therapy, but I want to zoom out a little bit and just remind our listeners that I say can take many different forms. You just use the word modality. So if speaking your truth is just not your gig, okay, fine. Can you draw it? Can you cook it? Can you construct it? Can you design it? Can you play it on a guitar? Express yourself and do it honestly.
I like that. I think we'll grab something from my deck here. And let's see. All right, I got one. This is the Ace of Waves. The Ace of Waves. And it's just called the First Ripple. And so this is the second chakra. And in my deck, it's water. And this is the first ripple, the very first perturbation of the waters of emotion.
Well, and that's an interesting follow-up. If we're beginning from a context of honest expression and vulnerability, well, that's certainly going to have an impetus that sets off reverberations. It's almost as if that moment of honesty is the raindrop hitting the top of the pond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the aces in the tarot are about possibility, newness, cycles. So for me, I see a journey through the chakras when it comes to the tarot. And so this is the second chakra. So the celestial has traveled through the first chakra and learned safety and security versus fear, and the balance between those two things. And now they're ready to start to deal with the second chakra, which is about the emotions. The emotions are deep waters. They're dark waters sometimes. And as that begins, there's sort of the first ripple. So the celestial is a new, creation. It's a new entity, has gotten past fear and now has access to the wealth of emotion, the wealth of emotions, the wellspring that they come from. And this is the very first feeling of that. So this is interesting because we were with the second chakra in the intro card, and here we are again, but we're focusing more on like a new beginnings, a start, a new realization, a new moment, a new cycle.
And I can't help but point out that we're getting it at the very beginning of a new year.
Yes, very, very pointed that this is happening, but it makes sense. The cards speak to us, give us these little reminders.
Do you want to dwell more on this, or is this enough context to go with a third card?
Well, I think we should probably look at how this idea is influenced. So I say what I feel, and then now there's a new idea of newness. And I think we need to put some context to that. Is what is the newness? What are we kind of as we put those two cards together, what's that interaction about?
Okay, well, I'm having a knee-jerk reaction.
Okay.
And when you said all that, my response is, when you have a new experience, you will likely have a sudden response. For example, you might be trying a new food for the first time, and the texture is unfamiliar, or whatever this new sensorial experience is or emotional experience. If you react prematurely, you might lose out on the deeper experience. So in that moment of newness, when you've got the water drop hitting the surface of the water and the ripples have just started, that moment of impact, you're going to have a response. I say what I feel, knowing that sharing it will help me to mature. Okay, just because you say what you feel doesn't mean that that's all you're ever going to feel. And sharing it, you've started a conversation about whatever this new experience is. Let's say that you've tasted a food and your first impression of it is that you do not like it at all. Maybe it's escargot, which I have yet to try. As much as I love the French and everything French, I still have not gotten myself to do that yet. But when I finally do try it, I will be very aware of my initial response and trying to make sure it isn't the only response. And when I share that experience, I will want someone to, me personally, I want people to push back against what I say because it helps me understand better and gives me a deeper appreciation. So the first snail might be crazy, but maybe the second one is, oh, yeah, it is buttery and herby. And yeah, okay, all right, yeah. So in being honest about your feelings, especially when it's a knee-jerk reaction to something new and unfamiliar, be careful that it doesn't become stuck. These are ripples, and they come out in ever-broadening circles. When you make that impact with the surface of the water and the ripples begin, there's that moment of impact at the center, but then what happens? Waves, multiple circular waves. It's not one ring that goes out and just sits still. It's many rings of impression, and they expand and dilute and can even push back on each other. So this is a conversation, and being honest from the very beginning will allow you to understand this new experience much better than if you think you know what it is and you say it and you just end right there.
I like what you were talking about. I have a slightly different impression here. I'm kind of seeing this as a conversation. Obviously, I say that there's a connection. The throat chakra is, part of one of our first connected chakras. When we talk about like focusing onto the other, there's the progression from the throat to the third eye to the crown, which kind of deepens and broadens our connection to others. I think that this is understanding that when you say what you feel and you're looking for maturity, you need to understand that has an impact, right? So you did it. I said what I felt. And but I'm telling someone, I'm communicating that to someone. And here I think the first ripple is that first, like you said, reaction that they have. And I think this is taking on what you're saying, building that you're causing a reaction in someone else, and you have to let that ripple play out. And there's, like you said, there's multiple ripples, and there's reflections of ripples, and some of the ripples make the reflection bigger, and some of the ripples make the reflection smaller, and some of them cancel each other out. And there's complexity. There's not just one response, there's multiple responses, like you said, and there's complexity to that. And I think you have to allow space for that other person to have those reactions, to feel those ripples before you can either expect a response or have meaningful response. That's kind of where I'm feeling is a caution to give that other person the opportunity to process, because you've activated their emotions. By saying what you feel, you've activated their emotions. This happens with my spouse and I all the time. I think there'll be kind of that initial, like, I don't want to watch this. I don't like this. Whereas the other person is like, I really like this. This is something that I really want to watch. And you have that kind of a first little knee jerk of like, well, why don't you like it? I don't understand. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with you?
If you don't like it, does that mean there's something wrong with me liking it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, coming back to the idea that sharing it will help me to mature. That's what conversation does.
Well, and I just going to the movie, I know it's a simple example, but just, I think for me, I will go along. That's just sort of I did the DISC assessment recently, and I'm a SC, primarily an S, and the S's tend to just go along and process sort of on the go and not really like a D is like, I will stand up for what I want. I will get what I want. And the S's are sort of the opposite of that. You know, they'll just kind of go along to get along. And
you know,
I tend to be that, but that's not fair. Like there's a reason that people need to be more balanced, you know, in these kind of situations, because saying what I feel is part of the maturity. Sharing what I feel, like I don't want to watch this. Like we started Drag Race Down Under, and I just don't care for it. We're watching the new season, and I'll probably watch the new season, but I've kind of fallen away from it a little bit. Drag Race isn't as appealing to me as it had been in the past, but it's one of our things. Like it's just one of our things. So I had to just say, you know what? It's okay. If you have this on the television and I am with you, I will watch it. But you may go ahead and watch this season on your own as well. And you don't feel like you have to save it for me. And that was me speaking, you know, my emotions, and there was some ripples, right? There was some ripples because it was it's our thing. It's one of the, since, you know, we first we met, one of the first things that we ever did was binge Drag Race old seasons to catch me up, because I hadn't watched anything before, I think season like 6 or 7. So we went back and binged some, and that was like one of the first activities we did as a future couple.
There's a show that you've been asking me to watch.
Yes.
What is it called?
It's called Agatha All Along.
And I hate it. I'm sorry. I finally tried it, and we're speaking our truth. We're talking about shows, and I watched it for 7 minutes and turned the entire TV off.
Did you watch WandaVision?
No.
That's why you hate it. I didn't know you didn't watch WandaVision. You had no idea what you were walking into.
No, I don't know what WandaVision is. I'm sorry.
You have to watch WandaVision.
So, okay, now here we are. All right. Knowing this, I will give it another shot if I can have more context with it. But my first impression of the show is that there's this angry lesbian who can't act, yelling at people the whole time. It's like, I'm too stressed out for this. And I turned it off.
No, yeah. So I swear we've talked about WandaVision. No, you have to watch WandaVision.
Okay.
WandaVision starts very weird. You have to allow space for it to be weird it's like you're writing. You have to allow space for it to be something that is not penetrable at first, and then lets you in very slowly.
Okay, well, that's my jam. And see, this interaction just now is a very perfect example of my ripples canceling each other out. It's like, okay, oh, there's more context here. Okay, well, I'll go back and watch WandaVision then.
Yes.
But no, my first impression of this show, what did you call it? Angela all along? Agatha. What a bitch. I didn't like her at all.
Well, this is why you, yeah. I'm glad you stopped at 7 minutes, because you would have ruined WandaVision for yourself had you watched more than 7 minutes. So excellent.
So
excellent
I will
work
go
there.
back and do WandaVision, and then we'll have this conversation again.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Whew. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why do I hate this?
If I had known that, I never would have pushed you so hard. I would have pushed you to watch WandaVision, because WandaVision is what will make you love the world, this little mini Marvel world that this one producer has created. This one writer producer has created this magical little corner of the Marvel universe for the gays and the girls and the.
All right. Well, okay. Then I can go back and look for WandaVision instead, and that's also.
But I would have told you, you need give it. It starts weird. And
I like starting weird.
It starts
I
you
love impenetrability.
It starts you right in the middle of the action, and you have no idea what the action is. Yeah. It's very strange. I'll just tell you, because you start basically in the middle of the Dick Van Dyke Show with characters that you know. So there's Marvel characters on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and that is your context, and you
just go from there.
And the first episode has a moment. And then you get in the second episode, and there's more moments, and the reality of the story world begins to come together until you have a connection point where you go,
No, see, that's the kind of storytelling I do like. Okay, that I can jam with.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
all right.
I have to ask now, but do you know Wanda, the Scarlet Witch? Did you see any of the any of the Avengers movies?
Yes, but there's like 75 of those things, and I don't know which title goes with which part of which story.
The one with all the red magic power that killed Ultron and ruined Thanos' day in the last Avengers movie?
Was she living in a cabin by herself?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I remember that.
Yeah. That's the Scarlet Witch. That's Wanda. And she's
I liked her. I remember. I don't remember her specifically, like all of her nuances, but I remember liking her and wondering why she was out there by herself.
Yeah, so she's awesome because she kills Ultron. Like she's the one that actually kills Ultron, and then in the end game, they're all fighting Thanos, and like the three of them, like the big heroes, Thor and Iron Man and Captain America, are beating on him, and he's beating them back up, and then he kind of like defeats them a little bit. Like there's a lull, and she shows up and she's like, I am going to wreck your day. And then she wrecks his shit. And the only thing that saves him is he calls for a planetary strike on his own forces because she is wrecking him so much. Like even Captain Marvel goes one-on-one with him and does not succeed at wrecking his day as much as Wanda did.
Nice. So yeah, I there are literally dozens of these movies, and I know that I have seen most, if not all of them. I know this because during 2020, when everything was locked down, I went through and watched all of them in order. I looked up what order to watch them in, I think on Wikipedia or something. And I watched everything that was out up until that point in 2020. And then I've kept up with some of them since then. I think since then, Black Panther's come out. So there's been some additions to it since 2020. But I know that I went straight down that list. And over the course of a few weeks, I watched everything. And I remember liking all of them with one exception. There was one, I mean, some of them were better than others, of course, but there was one that was just terrible, just awful. And it was the Hulk. Oh, the Hulk was terrible.
Yeah,
it looks so cheap and ugly and trashy.
They redid the really bad ones. I don't know if you've seen the really bad one. There was one before Iron Man started. So before the MCU really started, then they recast the Hulk, and then they recast him again. And it was trying to fix old problems and it didn't really stand on its own.
I don't know which one it was, but it was so ugly. I was like, this movie is ugly. It wasn't pleasant to watch.
Maybe you watched the bad one. Who played the Hulk? Was it Eric Bana or Edward Norton?
Edward Norton.
Okay, that's the remake. So that's
supposed to be the bad one or the good one?
That's supposed to be the better one. We won't call it the good one. It's supposed to be the better one. Mark Ruffalo is really the only person that's done the Hulk right, and he didn't start until Avengers. So I honestly forgot about the Hulk. I never consider it.
It's not canon. Goodbye.
Yes, bye. Thor: The Dark World's kind of almost at that point too, where I'm just like, no, it's okay.
I think honestly, my favorite incarnation of Thor was when he had a beer belly and was like stuck on the couch. I don't remember why that happened, but I was like, oh my god, he's so cute when he's
That was
budging.
in the game. Yeah, that was after he lost faith in himself because he didn't kill Thanos.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah. It's such a huge universe. I can't keep up with all of it.
I eat it up. My brain just eats it up. So like it becomes like an encyclopedic knowledge of stuff. I'm not like crazy levels or like I can quote it and tell you who was in the scene, but like I my brain just likes to eat up lore and things like that. So the interconnectedness of it, my brain goes, ooh.
Oh yeah. Well, I love that kind of stuff too, but I think I like it in smaller measures. For example, I love Lord of the Rings and it's deep. It's deep, but there's only like really only 5 or 6 books you need to worry about. And the rest of it's just like, drafts.
Yep.
But this is like, it just never ends.
The Children of Huron was a really good addition because
I love that one. Yeah.
It was actual tales. It wasn't like notes.
That one's very good too.
That was a good one. Well, I mean, getting back to our cards.
But this was a good demonstration of what it's like to allow people's opinions to, develop and mature. And
even though we're very similar and do have similar tastes in a lot of things, we do experience things differently. And I'm glad that you watched the 7 Minutes of Agatha without the context that you needed to have right, without the ripples that you needed to have and the love that you needed to have, because I think a lot of people went into the show with all that love, and I'll be curious to hear about your experience of that story arc as well. But a lot of people went into the show with that love, and I think they were blinded by a little bit, and they forgot the characters they were watching a little bit, and it caused them to think that they wanted something or that they deserved something that wasn't really the story. So I'm fascinated. Now I have two wonderful things to discuss with you. I have WandaVision, which is glorious. And I'm surprised. It's funny because while you were watching all of them, that's when WandaVision came out. It was the very first Marvel TV show that was released, and it blew everyone away. They never expected it to be as popular and as big as it was. And they had Loki coming. Like, they had Tom Hiddleston's Loki. They figured that's it. That's going to be the one. And a lot of people love Loki. Loki's very good. But yeah, when the pandemic started, it came out in 2021, I think, the very first part of 2021. And just absolutely people were like, oh my God, what is this? This is amazing.
Nice.
It's so good that my spouse, who does not like Marvel, loves it and actually loves WandaVision, and because of that went to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because of the character. Loved it so much, and this is why that movie, which was not good, did so well, was because there was so much love, so much groundswell of love for this character because of that show. So yeah, I look forward to welcoming you into the loving arms of Mother. Mother and Mother. Let's go with your cards. Let's see what the Realms of Fate say.
Oh, well, we're going with deck number 1, the really sassy one, the Projections of Joy. Okay. This is my deck that can get kind of, rude. Rude. Number 37. So even higher than where we just were on mine. Let's see, 37. That's going to be up in Ajna. 37. Where are we at? Oh, that was kind of sweet. Okay. This is where third eye, blue, water, is influenced by crown, Akasha, purple. Are you ready?
Third eye, blue, water, Akasha, crown. Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? All right. You need a bubble bath. Don't argue with me. Run warm water. Dissolve crusty vibes.
Yeah. Well, we've got water, right? We've got water again. So we had water for the second chakra. We have water for the third eye. The crusty, that speaks to me. Warm water is one of my soothing mechanisms. I'll often, like if I want to have a creative day, I will get up, I'll do my Red Bull, kind of wake up, and then I'll take my Adderall and go take a warm shower. And the Adderall kicks in while the warm shower is going on, and then I will go and write. And when that happens, it's a very beautiful, connected moment. There is something about warm water on your skin that just releases things, eases things, that makes things feel more fluid. I like that. And I like the idea of dissolving crusty things.
So we're looking at the way we perceive the world, how we learn, the information we have available to us, the way we see and understand, and how that's influenced by our sense of purpose, morality, connectedness to the broader universe, spirituality. So you need a bubble bath. Don't argue with me. Run warm water. Dissolve crusty vibes. This is one that's never come up before. We've never had deck number 1, card number 37. And we're facing a moment where I do not remember why I wrote this card this way. And so we're going to go through a process of rediscovery.
I was going to ask you, I'm not seeing Akasha in there as much, and I'm curious where you find it.
So I think it's going to be the process of dissolving crusty vibes. And this situation is the process of allowing that which is unnecessary to fall away. That, and to your point about warm water and it being relaxing, that there's something here that allows a meditative state, something that washes your vision clean so you can see even deeper. I'm thinking that's the vibe I was going for, but let's look at some of the other cards to see if I can get some clues here. The profession is, I profess that I see that I want to see more. Yes. Okay. This is me telling you to chill out, take some time to yourself, think deep thoughts, connect them to your broader sense of self. What's the haiku for this? Sorrow's drowning thirst, ecstatic dissolution, quench my parched spirit. This is me inviting you to take some self-care time to ponder and process the way you see the world. And I'm inviting you to do it by way of a warm bubble bath. That's something you can practically do, is go run yourself a bath, sit in there, and just let understanding seep in.
Is this third eye being influenced by crown or crown being influenced by third eye?
This is third eye. The main cycle is third eye, and what happens when it intersects with the crown.
Okay.
So the purpose of this is to see more clearly by way of a process of something that's meditative in whatever way. This happens to be an invitation, because it's water being the main cycle, to take a warm bath.
Makes sense.
And if the crusties are, what needs to be washed away, then perhaps those that might be wrong information or disinformation or misunderstanding or just the general need for clarification, getting rid of what's blocking your vision and seeing more clearly.
All right.
And with the projections deck, the projections deck is intended not only to be much more free-spirited and funny in order to take some of the seriousness out of all of this so it can become more enjoyable, is to do something with it. And I'm not telling you that this is the only way. I'm suggesting that you do something fun for yourself that will allow you to take some time to get comfortable and clear your thoughts. And because it's in the water cycle in my system, I thought, well, why not a bubble bath? Why not?
Well, in the crusties, I like the subtext of the wordplay there with like sleep in your eye, sleep in your third eye, crusties in your third eye. I like that that's a little fun. It's a little fun little nugget there.
So underlying this suggestion is that by whatever means you need to do some self-care that allows you to go more deeply into the way you understand your own thoughts, do that. Make that time for the self-care.
So going back to our context then, so we have an initial action, I think, that we're taking to express our emotions and work toward maturity. There's a receptive nature of those actions, those words, those expressions, I think, as you said. And now we have a moment of reflection. So I think there is a note of self-care already in here, but it started with expressing something. So I think what I'm hearing is you need to say something to someone. You need to do it from a place of seeking maturity, not from just a place of unloading. You need to give space for them to process, but then I think you need space for you to process. And speaking of the maturity I think that the first card was talking about was our Akasha, our connection to the crown, our connection to the universe, to the cosmic ocean, to the higher powers, higher frequencies, to God. This is something that you need to let go of, let out, express to someone, to deepen a connection, to create those ripples maybe within them. Maybe they also need it for their maturity. They need to hear it. You need to say it. They need to hear it. But then there's a moment where you need to take this back internal. So we have the third eye with the emotions. Now we have the third eye with the crown. So We've got the third eyes come up twice in that.
And part of the process of becoming mature is becoming patient. And this card is inviting you to take some time to slow down and absorb whatever this information is and figure out how to process it. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you should try to understand it, sit with it, soak with it.
Remove the crusties.
Remove the crusties, wash them away.
Let's pull something from my deck here. I think we need some clarification or some direction. We need sassy directive deck is what we need. This is the Two of Storms. All right, this will be great. Blown two different ways, you seek direction.
And we do. That's why we pulled a card.
Yes. Yes.
So, in the broader context of what we've done so far, here you are spending time with this new information, trying to understand how it relates to you. If you're feeling two different ways about it, then it's good that you are being mature and taking the time to contemplate. So it might be that feeling divided or feeling unsettled or confused is simply part of the process, and there's nothing wrong with that. It might mean that you simply have to be even more mature and more patient and soak even longer until something does become clear. If something has to become clear, stuff doesn't always have to be clear.
Well, especially when we're dealing with the crown, oftentimes there's peace to be found, sometimes understanding, but you're dealing with things that are very much beyond, things that are greater than that words maybe can't express.
Read the card again.
Blown two different ways, you seek direction.
So I also have the impression of binaries and dichotomies. Okay. So blacks and whites. Okay. And then living within the gray areas. That's okay to understand that you're possibly dealing with some polarity here. And with that in mind, it's pretty rare that there's an absolute answer to anything, especially an absolute answer that's always quote unquote correct. As you're, soaking with this information that you've received via this conversation, it's okay to continue seeking the direction. If you find the direction, sometimes that in and of itself is the problem. If you get set on one side or set in one direction or facing only one way to the exclusion of everything else, maybe it's okay to not know exactly what the quote unquote answer is to whatever you're pondering. It allows you to remain curious.
There's a Two of Wands, which has a similar vibe to this card, a similar kind of looking toward the future idea. But this is the Two of Swords in the tarot, and the swords have that double edge to them. It's more dangerous. It's more harmful. There's more edge, right? There's in this case, you're already in the air, being blown by two different winds. It's a dangerous place to be. So I think there's a sense of almost fear that comes into this that you have to release. I think that's why we're in the bubble bath. The bubble bath is very grounding, even though it's water, which is not earth, right? It's not incredibly grounding in that sense of the element. It is a grounding experience to kind of sink down into the water, feel the tub, feel the bubbles, feel the warmth of the embrace. There's something calming about that. And I think, you've come to a place, you've shared something, it's created ripples, right? It's created an effect. Your words have had an effect. We are taking that moment, allowing us to sit with that reflection, to sit with those ripples, and to try to connect to something greater than us. And really, there's a dichotomy, I think, that you're facing in this whole mix. And something about that dichotomy is unclear to you and feels a little dangerous. It might be a crisis of faith, maybe, and I obviously don't need to look very far for 2025 to cause a crisis of faith for people.
No.
There, maybe it's, you have always had a deep sensation that, things were working out for you, things were going well, and maybe that's been disproven by recent circumstances, or maybe you're being challenged. Maybe a core metaphor that you've held for a while is being challenged, and you don't know which way to go for that. There's something that is tied to your heart, because this is the heart chakra for my deck. There's something that's tied to your heart. So something about joy, grief, and peace that is in the mix here, but it is tied to your ascension, your connection, your spirit, and your guidance, even that you're seeking. So I think there's something deep that is divisive for you, and you are looking for where to go. And I think because of the other cards that we've pulled, I think to your point, you need to sit with that feeling, right? You're not going to just choose a path and go. You need to sit with the indecisiveness and possibly even come to peace with indecisiveness, as that you may not know, you may never know, or you may not know now.
Something that's interesting about water being present through here is that water itself is pretty shapeless, just like the air that's blowing you around between these two directions. Even the place where you're coming to settle and relax and ponder and soak, that elemental water takes the shape of whatever is around it. It also is shapeless, and yet that can be comforting. So although it might be discombobulating to not have a sense of direction, sometimes that diffuse sense of boundary is okay. Now, if you're in a bathtub, then the water's taking the shape of that tub. But imagine yourself soaking in this cosmic ocean, this warm cosmic bubble bath. It has no particular shape, and yet that you can float like a little embryo, safe and warm, just gestating on whatever is happening. And sure, okay, the wind is blowing outside, it's cold, it's scary. But fluidity is very freeing. So it's kind of it's an interesting juxtaposition that one elemental that is so shapeless can be so comforting, while another one that is shapeless can be so discombobulating.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is that is dichotomous unto itself. And so part of what I'm beginning to sense from this reading is that the not knowing can be just as interesting as the knowing.
There's very much a sense of feeling okay with not being okay, having a big question that maybe can't be answered, but the search, the journey to find an answer is the important part. I talk about grief leaving spaces inside of you that can be filled with things. So grief marks the boundary of where something is missing, where something that was is gone. And then what you need to do is fill that with the joy and the happiness that whatever it is that's lost brought to you. So you create a monument of joy and happiness rather than an echo of loss. And I think that's kind of coming into play here a little bit with the heart chakra being focus of this particular storm. You have a space that you are looking for direction on how to fill, on where to go, what direction to take, what should you be filling it with. And this is something deep and spiritual for you. This is very, very close to your heart, very close to your spirit, to your connection. And I think, like you said, it may not be answerable. It may just be that you need to sit with that. I go back again, as I always do, to Buddhist koans, to Zen koans, where sometimes the dichotomy is the answer. It doesn't make sense to us because it wasn't for us, but by studying them, we can start to train our mind to be okay with two opposing conflicting, contrasting ideas.
Sometimes you need to watch WandaVision before you can watch Angela in the Middle.
Yes.
No, what is this called?
You're going to kill me here. It's Agatha All Along.
I don't know why I have such a problem with this title.
You won't after you watch WandaVision.
Yes.
After you watch WandaVision, you will not have any trouble.
Let's do a fifth card. I'm eager.
All right. I'm going to pull here. All right. We have the Three of Waves. All right. Well, we're working our way up through the cards here. The Three of Waves is dance above the water where three waves meet.
This one sounds familiar. I think it's come up before.
I think so, yeah. So dance above the water where three waves meet. So the idea of the image is that when you have enough ripples coming together at the same moment, then a single drop of water explodes into the air. So
Gotcha.
the reverberations, the ripples create something, not just bigger ripples, but something, beyond, something that leaps up. And I think that's a great image.
It's almost the inversion of the ace in a way.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Rather than the drop falling and setting off the ripples, this is the ripples coming back on themselves and erupting from the center again.
Exactly. No, it's the exact opposite. And there's something ephemeral about that drop. It speaks to creation, right? It speaks to, depending on your metaphor, what it means to be alive is to be a drop separated from the ocean, but never truly missing from it, and created out of this explosion of all these energies, these cosmic energies releasing you, but you only remain away from the ocean for so long, and then you return to it.
It reminds me of the bubble bath card, because that affirmation was something like, I profess that I see that I want to see more. This is like the cycle of, the recycling of concepts and energy in life, and understanding that this process, the process of, sharing ideas, growing, maturing, settling onto, whatever your understanding is, in and of itself becomes an impetus for the next idea. This is not a process that stops. And that's especially true if you don't arrive on an answer, because then you continue seeking and pondering and soaking. But even if you do come to an outright answer, then you have something more direct to contribute back into, whatever's going to happen. But you don't have to. This process works either way. Mm-hmm. It is the exchange of energy, and the energy here takes the form of ideas, which then become, memories and can then affect behavior. But really, it's all just translations of the vibrations of intention. Just like something falling into the water and setting off this process of rippling back and forth across and da-da-da-da-da. What I'm hearing is a reminder that whether you come to full understanding or not, it matters more that you made the effort and that you continue participating.
Absolutely.
That is more important than coming to a full understanding.
Well, this is the Three of Cups in the tarot, and there's different ways to interpret it. Sometimes it can be seen as a polyamory card, because it's, emotions and it's threes. And there is something about a triangle that's more supportive. A duality is harder to support than a triune is. There's a reason why there's gods and goddesses that are three parts. It's a very balanced number. Even though it's odd, it has an evenness to it. And there's, a joining of emotions here, and a joining of connection. And, in our ephemeral sort of place that we got to with this reading, I think it's a reminder that you still, like the water, you're still lower down, right? We're still in the second chakra here. We had 2 of my cards in the second chakra, I think, to remind us that as much as we can connect with the crown, as much as we can connect with the beyond, we are still, here. We are bounded, like we are water bounded by flesh. Mm-hmm. And that home affects how we understand and how we interact and interpret and become and be with that which is greater.
It's been very interesting reading.
Quite. I think as a capstone, speak your emotions with a understanding of maturity. Allow space for those ripples to settle. Calm your mind and allow yourself to connect with the higher power, the higher being, the higher frequency, whatever that is for you. Accept that there's dichotomies that you can't solve, definitely not easily, maybe not at all. And then realize that, you are that little drop that has risen above the ocean, and for a moment you're isolated and here, an individual, but you will return to the source, and that which seems dichotomous now won't seem dichotomous then. So I think there's a note of hope here at the end.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have a members only version of the podcast that is available through Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to support us and get to hear how the readings affect us personally, like how we're personally understanding what we did in the reading, then you can subscribe to that and get all that lovely extra content. It's usually about a half hour. So, I don't know if you're doing this on your commute or doing this in the shower or wherever you listen to us, but if you'd like about, 30, sometimes a little bit longer minutes, extra content, then that's a way to do that. Our YouTube is Show Your Deck. So you can actually see the pretty decks that we're talking about as part of the reading, and you can subscribe and listen, watch the podcast there. We also have books, and our decks are available at showyourdeck.com. Jack, where can we find you?
I'm at 49 Haiku, the number 4, the number 9, HAIKU. Online, that would be 49haiku.com. And on Instagram, that would be at 49haiku.
And I am Dean Sage Media. Find me if you would like to find me to talk. I am Dean Sage Media. Our show has an Instagram. It's at Your Deck on Instagram. And we will say goodbye for now.